Hey friends, this is our good friend and mentor, Tony Cristofano. We met him in Arizona years ago when we were teaching color guard and drama. He is a judge in the circuit. He is from Pennsylvania, just like we are. Yay! And we just had an instant friendship and connection with him. And so we knew when we were talking about LGBTQ plus just the topic in the community and everything that needs to go on, that he was someone we wanted to reach out to and talk to. So Tony, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Like you said, my name's Tony Cristofano. I'm 65 years old. I'm originally from Butler, Pennsylvania, which is a little town about 30 miles northeast of Pittsburgh. It's not it's a big little city, I guess is what I would say. But that's where I grew up until I was 25. When I was 25, I moved to Texas. Moved to Austin, lived there for a few years, then went to Houston and lived in Texas for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
From there, I was in a relationship and it broke up, so I decided I was leaving. So I left and went to Denver, Colorado, lived there for 15 years, and met my husband that, we have been together on August 22nd, will be 22 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And he is from Mexico, and we had to deal with a lot of immigration things. So we had made the decision after 15 years of being in Denver that we were leaving the United States and we were moving to Mexico.
Oh, wow.
So it's a little bit about me. So,
and how long have you been in Mexico now?
We've been here about 6.5 years now.
Very cool.
Rocky Point, Mexico.
Yeah. Right down the road.
Yeah.
And so you are really active in the color guard community. Is that what your main job is?
Yep. I'm retired now, but all I do for extra income and it's something that I've done. I started the march in a drum and bugle corps in Butler, Pennsylvania, the General Butler Vagabonds, when I was 10 years old in 1966. And I had my first job teaching a group when I was 15 years old.
Wow.
And I had decided, after doing that the first time, and it was an interesting story that we were at I think it was a VFW parade in Harrisburg.
Yeah.
And we were marching down the street, and this guy comes running up and said, "Hey, we need somebody to come to this camp to teach rifle. Could you do it?" I said, I don't know. I don't drive. How would I get there? I don't know where. And it was in Wood. PA. The guy said, "We'll put you on a bus. We'll get you there. You'll get paid to do the thing." So I got home and I said, "Well, I'll have to ask my parents. I don't know if they'll let me do this being 15." So I literally walked in the door, the phone's ringing, and it's this guy. "Well, can you come?" So I turned to my dad and told him real quick what was going on. He said, "If you want to go, go." So I went, they put me on the bus, went to Pittsburgh, got on the bus, got to Williamsport like at midnight that night. Somebody picked me up, took me to this camp, and the camp was called Camp Maple Lake. So I had no idea what I was getting into. So the next morning I get up, I go to the breakfast area where they serve breakfast, and then go down to where we're starting the camp. I ended up teaching 75 girls. My first job teaching, and flew by the seat of my pants because I had no idea what I was going to do. And I had to break them up into 3 different groups. And most of them were older than me. So, it was a great experience. And I knew once I did that, I thought, I want to teach.
Oh, that's awesome.
started teaching, a rifle drill team up in Du Bois, PA, and, just started doing a lot of color guards around the area. And that's basically what I've done most of my life. It's always been color guard, drum corps, marching band. So, it's one of those things that I think you guys know that you start doing it. It's either you get the bug or you don't get the bug. And I'm that had the bug, and it's like 55 years later, I'm still doing it. So.
That's amazing. That's awesome. That's really cool. All right. So you mentioned that you have a husband. So our next question we talked about was like, where are you on the LGBTQ plus spectrum?
Yeah. Well, obviously we're very open, and as far as everything goes, the whole thing with being gay is, and I think a lot of what we're going to talk about, just goes back to this same thing. You just have to be who you are. I think something else that we're wanted to talk about is, it's when I was growing up, I always knew what I was. I always knew what I liked. And people have always said, well, you have a choice. I don't believe that. Really do not believe that. I always knew what I liked. When I was in school, in junior high and that, I always hung around the girls. And not that I feel like I'm a very feminine person, but I always hung around the girls. That's who I related to. When I was around my family, when we'd be at family functions, I never really hung around the kids. I always wanted to be around the adults. I just felt like I could, communicate more with them than I did with the kids. Because, my cousins and everything, they played ball and they do this and they do that. And I just like sitting around and, listening to conversation. So, but, as far as the whole thing, everybody you have to be who you are.
Yeah.
And some things, I'll admit, I don't understand a lot of things as, within the, the gay community, and, what some people do and what they like and why and that, but, you accept them. I have a friend that lives in Colorado that one day he sent me a message and said, I hope you're not mad at me, but I'm going to have the operation.
Oh.
I feel like I'm in the wrong body. And I said, why would I be mad at you?
Yeah.
Why would I be upset with you?
Doesn't it make you sad too that their natural go-to thought is that people are going to be mad at him?
Yep.
They apologize first.
Right. Yeah.
That, he said, well, I understand if you never want to talk to me again, because I feel like I'm going to lose a lot of friends. And I said, I would never be like that. If that's what you feel you need to do, then you need to do it.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
I do feel that there are people that are born in the wrong bodies, and you have to make a decision that you have to be comfortable with the person that you are and be who you are.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot of science that's out there too, that you're born into the body you are, and there's so many biological and just different things going on, whether it's the chemistry of the brain, the body functions, the body, the composite, how you're made up. Some people are born with male and female, anatomy, right? And we have to choose. Oftentimes what happened is they would choose one as a doctor. How do you know which one matches the other chemistry of the makeup of the body, right? So then you're choosing for that person, and things like that have happened a lot in just our history of dealing with this. And I think you brought up something like, there's a lot of people that feel different ways, even in the gay community, about who they like or about themselves, or the LGBTQ community. And you think about that in the heterosexual community, there's a lot of people that like different things and enjoy different things in terms of whether it's who they date or how they date or what they find attractive on people. Like, so I think when you look at it, it's hard to say like, you're a gay man, so you're going to like everything that I think a gay man would like, or, you have different preferences yourself, like someone might say, I like redheads, or like it's a very different thing, but it's still like an interesting concept that
it's very similar.
It's similar. It's the same thing, except, and you said you always knew. And I hear that question a lot of like, well, how did you know that you were gay? And it's like, well, how did you know you were not gay? Right?
Absolutely. it's like, how did you know you were straight?
Yeah. So I'm straight, I'm attracted to women, to my wife. Yeah. And so clarify.
But, not multiple, just one.
Yeah, it's like, I just knew it, you know what I mean? It's just something that has always been there, and I think it's kind of, for me to understand that from my perspective, it's kind of easy to be like, well, I knew what I liked. Why wouldn't it be natural for someone to know what they like, or for me to impose on them what they like, So I find that interesting as an argument of like, well, how did you know? Or even a question. It's like, have you asked yourself that, so that's an interesting question that comes up.
Speaking of like, you've always known, how old were you when you told other people, when you came out?
Well, it's an interesting story. Trying to make it short. When I marched drum corps, like I said, the drum corps that I marched in was all boys when we started. And I knew that that's what I loved. It's like, wow, this is great. And I'm not going to say that I was taken advantage of by some of the people in the corps. People knew.
Yeah.
And, when you're young and you're a teenager, hormones are raging.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're straight or you're gay. And, so things would happen. And not that anything was out of what I didn't want to do. I did. And, but when I, as I got older and, another part of the story is, going through high school and that, I really never said anything to anybody. You sort of kept it to yourself. And, I did what I did. I mean, when I turned 21, the day I turned 21, the first thing I did was I went to Pittsburgh and I went to a gay bar and experienced the whole thing and scared to death.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm going to do this. And I got picked up that night. And I thought, okay, this is fun. Yeah. But, just like it was, to me, it was a date. But, that was the good thing is, I could go out, I could do what I want, I could be around the people that I wanted to be around. Now, something happened when I was 25. One of the girls that I hung around with when I was in junior high, we were very, very good friends. And the funny thing is she moved to Phoenix.
Really?
Lived in Glendale. So we always stayed in touch. So in 1977, when I, was teaching drum corps then, I had finished the season and she had sent me a message saying, hey, why don't you come out and to visit? So I went out to Phoenix to visit. She had a little boy that was 2 years old at the time. And so I went to Phoenix after the summer because I thought, okay, I got to just do something. So I'm out there. Well, she was still very much in love with me from even when we were in junior high and wanted things to happen. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't. I just can't do that.
No.
The dog's barking at the TV. So I got to turn it off. But so I said, no, I can't. Well, the next year she decided to come to Pennsylvania with her little boy. So I lived with my grandmother And I said, well, come and stay with us. Well, when she came and brought her little boy, with her, I fell in love.
Mm.
The idea of being a dad. So she was there for a month, and we were together every day. And during that time, I thought, I really want to be a dad. And he was the cutest boy, the cutest little kid. And so I asked her to marry me.
Oh, wow.
But I knew that it was something I shouldn't have done before I did it. But being raised, and that's something else that you asked, I was raised Catholic. And we had planned the wedding and everything. And I thought, one of my first relationships that I was in when I was in drum corps, we always stayed very, very close, even though we weren't together anymore. But I'd seen him the night before I got married, and he said, are you sure this is what you want to do? And I said, no, but my dad would kill me if I backed out of this now. Being Catholic and being, getting married in the church, and we had to change our wedding date 3 times because it didn't fit what the family could do. This person couldn't come on that day, and this person can't come this day, and this person couldn't come on that day. So we ended up getting married on a Wednesday because that's the only time. And I finally got to the point, I said, we're getting married when we want to get married. It's our wedding. So the night before, like I said, my friend said, are you sure this is what you want to do? And I said, no, but I have to do it. So we got married. I was happy for a while, and I was teaching a bunch of different color guards. And after 10 months, I kept thinking, I just can't do this. I can't live this lie anymore. I can't live this lie of me being somebody, me pretending to be somebody that I am not. So one night I didn't come home from teaching. And the next day I went back and I said to her, I can't do this no more. I said, I can't live a lie. So I told her, I said, I've tried and I wanted it to work. And I love the idea of being with you and everything, but it's just what's right for me to do. And I can't live with you and pretend I'm somebody that I'm not.
Oh, wow.
That was when I was 25. And that's when I came out to my parents. And I said, because they were blaming her for everything whenever we split up. And I basically told them, I said, you can't blame her for something that's not her fault. I said, this is my choice. And I said, I'm gay. I have to be who I am. And my dad said, I always thought you were.
Really?
And I thought, well, why didn't you say something to me before I got married?
Yeah.
And being Italian, he was a typical Italian father that, there was not a lot of emotion that was shown to us, but I have a lot of the traits of my dad. I mean, if you saw a picture of my dad next to me right now, you would say, my God, yep, I'm him.
I think I've seen you post pictures of him on Facebook before, and I thought that I was like, oh yeah, you didn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah. And I was the oldest of 6 kids, so I was, and I look exactly like my dad. My dad loved to cook. I love to cook. My dad loved Christmas, and he decorated. Well, you can probably see from part of the house that there's Christmas up all the time, but I got that from my dad. And but I think the sweet side of me came from my mom. My mom was the sweetest person in the world, and she would do anything for anybody. And I think that's where my heart comes from, is my mom.
Yeah.
Because I will give anybody a chance, and I'll give them a second chance, and I'll give them a third chance. And I don't know if I'll give a 4th chance, but
that's too much.
Only 4.
But I think, but like I said, that's we got divorced, and after all that, and I finally told my parents, I thought, talk about a weight lifted off your shoulders of
Yeah.
something you've sort of hid and never let anybody, never just came out and told anybody. So,
Mm.
you know, after that, it's just, okay, I got to be who I am. So,
Do you still have, or did you contact with your ex-wife and
yeah, we do. When my mom passed away, I was really surprised because she was there for me when I
Oh.
went back to Butler. She had moved back to Pennsylvania, and well, because you know we lived there, and when we got married, she stayed there and met another guy, and you know married him,
Mm.
and but we've stayed in touch, not as much as I'd like to, and I mean. Done some things where she's hurt me because you know she knew I was coming home and hey, let's get together and let's go to dinner, and I'd go to the restaurant and wait, and she would never show up.
Oh, yeah.
And, I thought, okay. And you know I tried not to let it bother me, but it did, because you know when you care about somebody, it's you expect when they say they're going to do something that they're going to be there.
Yeah.
But we stay in touch. When my dad passed away, she was there for me. You know, and my dad was very bitter when we got divorced and that, because I think he still blamed her.
Really?
You know, when my mom passed away and I said, well, Cyanne's coming to the house. And my dad said, I don't want her in this house.
Really?
And I said, I'm sorry, but, you know, she's coming. You know, even though his house and the house that we all grew up in, you know, she came and we talked and that. And, you know, like I said, when my dad passed away, she was there for me. And we still chat on Facebook. And I haven't seen her for, God, I don't know how long. But like I said, we're still in touch with each other. And I think, you know, the big thing is I hurt her by, you know, by saying what I had to say. But like I said, I had to be who I was. I couldn't lie like I think a lot of people do. They're in relationships, they're married, you know, to a woman, but they're living that double life.
Mm.
It's not the way that it should be, because you're not hurting yourself, but you're hurting that other person. So
I would argue you're hurting each other. You know, you're hurting yourself by denying your true self to be who you are and to enjoy life to what you're meant to enjoy it as well as not being able to be that person that they want you to be, because it's not true to you and it's not true to them. So I think on both sides, it's hurtful and damaging, you know, that continues, you know, and obviously cutting it off is hurtful. But long term, I mean, that's a decision, and it's real, you know.
Mm.
Yeah.
I find it interesting, if you don't mind me saying, how your dad seemed to maybe blame her. Do you think maybe? I mean, this is like just assuming, but maybe he found it easier to blame her for you being gay rather than to be upset or angry with you. I mean, is that a possibility? You think? Do you ever think about it like that, or is it?
I don't know. I think it's just my dad. If you knew my dad, you would totally understand.
Okay. Yeah. Just figured when you said it, I think maybe that's an easy way to process it.
Yeah. And it's not, like I said, you know, some things I'll probably say and you're going to think, really? I'm a lot like my dad. I mean, I'm a very compassionate person, but I hate for somebody to say I'm wrong. You know, it really hurts when that happens. And what I do is when I say, when somebody makes me realize that I'm wrong, who do I take it out on? I take it out on my husband.
Oh,
it's all his fault. But knowing that really I'm mad at myself.
Right.
I'm mad at him. And, you know, and I think a lot of relationships, that's what we do is, you know, you're upset, but you take it out on the person that you love the most.
Mm.
Even though that's not what we need to do.
Yeah.
But
true.
Yeah. I didn't know that about you. That's really interesting. I didn't know that you were married. So when was that? In the 1970s, you said?
I got married in let's see, oh God, what year was it? I was 25. So it was like 78,
Okay.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you think about being in 1978, it was still kind of taboo.
Yeah.
It's still illegal.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Texas, you know?
Yeah, and so I can kind of see why, like, you kind of went down that path, even though you knew it wasn't true to yourself. It was just kind of what society expected of you, and
Right.
you know,
Yep.
I'm just really glad you're who you are.
Thank you.
You decided to live your truth and not what other people wanted it to be for you.
Yep. Yep.
That couldn't imagine. All right, so we've got a lot of questions. So,
Okay.
Did you have any experience, like you said you grew up Catholic?
Yes.
So did that kind of influence, besides the wedding, like did that influence much? And do you have any, like, does it still influence you today, or?
Positive or negative?
Mhm.
I just wish I think things have changed over the years, that being Catholic and in the Catholic Church, that things are more acceptable than what they were. I know it's still looked down upon. Do I go to church? No. So, I went to Catholic school up until like 5th grade. Then we went to public school. So, when you're in Catholic school, you're around the nuns. Everything was very, God this and God that. Not that I don't believe in God, I do. But, you just, I don't know. Something that happened later in life is Martine and I decided, okay, let's start going back to church. So we found a church in Denver that we really liked in downtown Denver. And we went to church, and there was every Sunday we'd get up and we'd go to church, and loved this church. And didn't really know anybody. We just sort of did our own thing. But we went one time, and at the end of the Mass, the priest said, well, there's this proposition, something about gays and things like that. And I strongly recommend you to vote against this. And I said, I'm done.
Yeah.
With the church, and what gives a person the right to get in front of all those people in a congregation and tell them the way they should vote.
Yeah.
That as much as because we had just talked that week about joining that church, and I said, nope, I'm done. So I don't think I've been back to church since then. Well, I shouldn't say that, because when I would go home to visit my dad, I would always go to church with him, and he said, you have to go. And I said, no, I want to go. I go with you.
Yeah.
So I would always go with him. But as far as, going to a church and, going every Sunday, no, I don't do it. I don't think you need to do that to believe in God, and, you can still believe and not go to church every Sunday. So, I don't think being Catholic, now I've found that a lot of people that are gay are Catholic. So, and I'm not saying that that's where it all comes from, but so.
We know a lot of, when we moved to the Phoenix area, a lot of Mormons or ex-Mormons sometimes that are gay. It seems to be out here a lot. So,
it seems
different areas. They're in every religion, obviously. They're everywhere. So,
Right.
Definitely upbringings and stuff. But
I think we kind of touched on our next question about what it was like growing up in your town. It was like close to Pittsburgh. But did you have anything else you wanted to share? Did you ever feel like an outsider? Did you always feel welcome? Do you think people besides your dad knew before before you were 25? I
think people did, but it's back then. Nobody talked about it. Everything was sort of hush hush, and you never really said a lot of things. Like I said, my first relationship that I was in, he marched in the drum corps that I was in. He lived on a farm. I would go out to the farm and we would be together. And, he was the youngest of 14 kids.
Wow.
And, but, I loved going out and working, baling hay and milking cows and doing all that. It was a great experience. And his mom knew what was going on, how close we were, and the arguments and fights that we would get into. She could tell. But, nobody ever said anything.
Yeah.
It's like back in those days, in the 70s, early 80s, you just sort of did your thing. And, nobody ever bullied me or talked nasty, bad to me. Like I think later in the years that, a lot of people that are gay, transgender, they get harassed all the time. So back then it's just nobody really said a whole lot.
Yeah. I'm glad that was your experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. When you were growing up, did you feel like you had a mentor or role model or like representation to look up to?
In the gay community, particularly?
No, not really. I didn't, because like I said, marching, drum corps, and teaching, I sort of always did my own thing. And I've always been sort of I don't want to say a loner, but I just always sort of done my own thing. And but I never really had anybody that I looked up to back when I was younger and that. So
do you wish you could have had that? Do you think that would have helped?
Yeah, I think it would have been made things a lot easier to know that somebody could be open with me and I could have been open with them.
Yeah.
But like I said, you just sort of did your own thing and you just kept it all to yourself and, just who you were. That's like whenever I was in a relationship, it's just like it was always me and that person. And, I never tried to go outside of that and just be, committed to that person, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
All right, let's see what's next. Okay, so what do you think are some of the biggest growths that you have seen for LGBTQ plus rights over your lifetime?
Well, one is just the acceptance of how, especially nowadays that, everything is just so accepted by majority of the people. I'm not going to say everybody. I will say, I bet you if you put a room of 100 people together, I would say more than 50% are going to be very accepted of who you are. And compared to, back in the days when I was a teenager and, in my early 20s and that, it probably would have went way the other way. More like maybe 5%. But, that's one thing that I think it's so nice to be able to just be who you are and not have to worry about it. When I came to Mexico and we started a color guard down here, and even when I was in Colorado and in Texas and I taught, I never told everybody, oh, well, I'm gay. It's just like, when Martina and I got together 22 years ago, he never knew what anything about color guard was. Would come, he would help me design flags, he would help me design my props and do everything. And the kids knew. I didn't have to say anything, they knew. And that great thing is they were accepting of it. They loved him and they loved me for who we were, not anything else. And same with the parents. Their parents, they knew. I didn't have to say anything.
Yeah.
So I think, that's the good thing is that things have grown so much that people are just accepting of who you are.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I never thought that I would see it in my lifetime, that we were able to legally be married.
Yeah.
And to me, that was when I turned 50, he said, what do you want for your 50th birthday? And I said, I want to do a ceremony that I can have my friends come, even though it means nothing. Even though it means nothing. I want to have a ceremony. I want to have a party. I want to have people come. I want us to stand in front of everybody and just, say what we think. So we did that on my 50th birthday.
Oh, that's awesome.
My mom came, my ex-partner came from Texas. One of my other best friends from Texas came. Most of the employees or the people that I worked with, they came. We invited our neighbors and all of our friends. We had about 50 people that came to our house, and it was just the neatest thing in the world. So, and I thought that's all the more that it would ever be.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing was when we moved, gay marriage wasn't legal yet in the States.
Right.
It was interesting because, his sister and brother lived in Farmington, New Mexico. So we had stopped there on our way to Mexico. And wasn't a week later that we found out that gay marriage was legalized in New Mexico. So I thought, if we would have only stayed for a week, we could have legally been married in the United States.
Yeah.
When we got here, we had found out that Mexico was legalizing gay marriage. So right away, once we knew that it was, we could do it, and there was a whole process here that we had to go through. You had to go and you had to apply for the marriage license, and then you had to send it off, and it had to be denied by the state, and then it had to go to the capital of of Sonora, where we live, and we had to hire a lawyer, and they had to sort of fight it, and so once all that came through, which took time, we had known about 3 months before we got married that we were going to be able to do it, but I put it on the back burner because it was during color guard season. So,
Like
you guys are at the party. This is just a format,
I said, it has to wait till April 23rd after I come back from WGI before we. So, but, and the interesting thing was and is, we were the first gay couple in Puerto Penasco, Rocky Point, Mexico, to legally be married.
Really? Oh,
Really
that's so cool.
Yeah. The newspaper did an article on us. We were on the Hermosillo News, which is the capital of Sonora. We were on the channel. So it was a big thing, and the judge that married us, she said, there could be some really big repercussions, especially being in. And what was the interesting thing? We have never had a problem.
Wow.
We would have somebody come and work on our air conditioning, and the guy said, "You're those guys that got married, aren't you?"
Well,
Really?
Yeah, and he said,
like celebrities.
"We're really, really happy for you guys."
Aw.
The great thing is, like I said, that we were finally able to do something in my lifetime that I never thought would ever happen for us.
That's amazing. That's incredible. Oh, that's really awesome, Tony.
You said something in there. It was just, it makes me think, like, I'm listening to you. When we ask, like, when did you come out, and the need to say to people, it's just interesting that we feel that we put that burden on people that are not heteronormative. I don't know if that's the right word, but, heterosexual. You have to tell us who you are. Like it's our, we have to know who you are. I think it was when you said the kids knew, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that okay? Like if they just inherently know because they know you as a person, they get to know you. And then that's why they love you, because you're a good person. Doesn't matter who you marry, you know what I'm saying? So it's just interesting that we put that burden on people of the LGBTQ plus community, that they're supposed to tell us, or we want them to tell us that they are almost times. But I think it's, it is important to share that with your loved ones and your family to to do that, but it's almost like an interesting concept that you guys have to carry that burden and tell us when like, we're like, hey, I'm heterosexual. You know, like we don't have to have that conversation, right? It's almost silly when you kind of
I always knew you were straight.
It's just an interesting concept when you try and flip it around to be the other person. Like that's just the privilege that I carry that I never had to think about telling anybody that. It's just assuming that that's who I am. You know what I mean? Which is just unfortunate but interesting. You know, that it's kind of forced upon people in the community to carry that burden and share it.
Yeah.
Possible repercussions, and a lot of times there are in different ways.
Right. Yeah, there are. Well, I'll tell you this, that my friend that lived on the farm when I marched drum corps, he ended up moving to California. Then from there, he moved to Tijuana. And he lived in Tijuana because it was a lot cheaper to live in Mexico than it was to live in, San Diego and that area. Well, something happened to him and a bunch of friends were going to a gay bar. And this was a long, long time ago. And he has passed away since then, he's been gone for quite a while. But, they were going to a gay bar and they all got beat up really bad. And he had traumatic brain damage because they were going into a gay bar. And I thought, wow, that could happen to anybody, back in the day. And that was probably 20, 30 years ago that happened, that this happened to him.
And that was in Tijuana or that was in the States?
It was in Tijuana. Yeah. But, like I said, now I think here is we're who we are. I don't care what people think, and nobody's ever given us a rough time. So that's the thing is I think even here, in Mexico, that people are just much more accepting than what they were, back then.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
It's great to acknowledge that, it's really important.
Yep.
I think we already kind of touched on the next question that I had, because it was just, do you feel like there's kind of a hierarchy of acceptance within the LGBTQ plus community? And I think you kind of touched on it, how like trans is not quite as accepted or understood. And is that pretty much what you were saying earlier?
Yeah, I think so. I just don't think that a lot of people understand it. Mm-hmm. And am I going to say that I totally understand? No, I don't. And I guess unless you are that type of a person that, you're born in one body, but you feel like you need to be, I guess unless you really go through that, are we ever going to understand that?
Yeah.
Right. It's almost unfair for us to ask you about that, right? Because it's like, I can never understand what it's like for you to be gay, just as much as you cannot really ever understand what it's like to be transgendered, right? So
how do you know, Dave? You might like it.
Tony, I've talked to you about this before. He's my husband. It's all right, Tony. You're not the first guy I've had to fight away from him.
He's turning red.
We had just a lot of really good friends through the years that are hip and gay or lesbian or, anything. But I remember in college, I had this one friend and he passed away a long time ago. It was heartbreaking, but he marched Madison Scouts and it was like the big deal that he was coming to our college and he was going to march marching band with us, and he was incredible. And when we met and like I made friends with him, he's like, I hated you at first. And I was like, why? He goes, because you were with Dave and he wasn't gay. I was like, I know, I'm sorry.
That's funny.
You cannot have him. He's for me.
It happens.
That's right. It does.
Oh my goodness. All right. Now moving on back to serious. Okay. What are some common misconceptions, do you think, or have you experienced any like microaggressions or anything that just you would like to like clear up or say like, it's not okay when you ask me those things, or it's not okay when you say those things, or anything like that?
I think the big thing is like like Dave, we talked about earlier is, people say, well, when did you know you were gay?
Mm.
Well, and like somebody had said to me one time, well, and I think I threw back at it, well, when did you know you were straight?
Yeah.
It's like, why would somebody even ask that?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous to ask that question. So
Mm.
I think that's a big thing, a misconception is, well, when did you know? Well, I've always known. I knew I liked. I remember before I was 10 years old, of things that just being around kids in the neighborhood, of what I liked,
Yeah.
what I was attracted to. The other thing that I think that drives me nuts is whenever you see something on TV, gay pride parades, all this and that, what do they show? The most flaming people in the world. So, when you see on TV, what does by them showing that just shows people that are ignorant and don't understand, well, that's a typical gay person.
Yeah.
They're, they're all like that. They're very feminine. And, I can remember living in Austin, Texas, and going to a bar once and seeing these butch cowboys dancing together. And I'm thinking, they're not gay.
That's not what they show me on TV.
They're just too butch, to be dancing, doing country dances, next to each other and holding each other, thinking, that a misconception that you think. It's just like when you see two beautiful women together, you think, even myself, I think they can't be lesbians. They're too beautiful to be with each other.
Yeah, you have to be the butch lesbian, right? Or
well, yeah. You see these gorgeous women, and you think they can't be gay. Mm. But so that's the thing is, it's what does the media? How do they perceive a gay person?
Mm.
Gay pride. Okay, yeah, we're proud to be who we are, but they go after those people that you think, oh, what kind of representation is this?
Yeah.
Go up to the butch guys that, you would see them and think, wow, I would never expect that person to be gay because just the way that they look.
Mm.
So,
Like when you hear about like sports professionals, like NFL players, it's like a huge deal when they come out and everybody's like, well, whatever, like, no, that's a big deal because it's breaking that stereotype of what you've been shown your whole life. For someone to come out, especially in certain positions where maybe it hasn't been kind of frowned, or it's been frowned upon, or you don't talk about it, kind of like you were saying back in the day.
Military,
might have been in the military, right? The don't ask, don't tell. So those things that come out, it is important to acknowledge that there are people that are there that are homosexual, transgender, it goes across the whole gamut that, and to say, like, I keep going back to me, like, I'm very different than someone who's been in sports their whole life. I've played sports, I've done music, I've done all these things, but like to assume that I'm going to be the same as every heterosexual male is kind of silly, right? So why would we put that again on the gay community, the lesbian community, the transgender, the bisexual community? Why do we have to put them in a box of what we want them to be instead of just accepting them for who they are? And that's okay.
I think too that kind of goes back to the role model question is, if you don't have that role model or someone like that representation to like kind of look up to, if everyone is so narrow-minded that you only have this and you have to grow up to be this type of person, yeah, I agree.
Well, I think, nowadays there's so many people that kids can look up to. Is like, look at a lot of younger kids may not know. Greg Louganis, when he came out as the swimmer and, he was gay, and you think, wow, and the other one, Ricky Martin, I'm thinking, no, he's too damn cute to be gay. It's like, you think, wow, you can look at people like that, that just jump into your head and think, wow, I would have never thought that person would be gay because just the the way they approached everything. It's just, again, it's not that typical way that the media displays thing a lot of times, that, that's not what you would expect a gay person to be. When everybody hears the word gay, transsex, transgender, lesbians, all that, they just think, oh, well, they're just like the lesbian women. You think, oh, they're just all butch, they look like men. That's not true. It's just not true.
Yeah.
I
agree. All right, what's our next one? We're getting down on our list. All right, so the next one we were talking about was, do you think, has being gay, do you think it has affected your social and emotional health, or do you feel like it was ever, I don't know how to really expand on that.
I guess, as you said, you just didn't talk about it when you were younger, right? So do you think that had social, emotional impacts on you through that time, as well as into adulthood, that you carry with you, whether it could be shame or, if you felt that, I don't want to put that on you, but, those types of emotions and feelings that may have carried you because of being gay in our society and growing up that way?
Yeah, I think so. In the younger years, like I said, I'm very, very much like both of my parents. I'm so bullheaded like my dad, but that emotional side of me was like my mom. I mean, I would watch Lassie and I would cry. And sometimes I would sit there and think, why am I crying? This is just a TV show. I'll watch,
yes.
on TV now and or, see somebody getting married and I cry like a baby, and I'm thinking, it's just so, to me, it's just my feelings just open up, where I think when I was younger, you tried to hold some of those feelings inside of you, afraid to let them out. I remember as young as I was when John F. Kennedy died and watching the funeral. I was at my mother's house sitting underneath her dining room table, just crying my eyes out.
Wow.
I was a great president. And it's like, I'm thinking, why am I so emotional about, why am I crying? But it just broke my heart to see something like that. So, obviously when I came out, it's like I said, that weight was lifted off my shoulders and I felt like I can just be who I want to be now. And I don't ever have to hide it anymore. Now, do we still go through a thing where, if Martine and I are out and, there's times that I want, he'll want to hold my hand or something. And you just sort of still think, I don't know that, what's everybody going to think about that?
Yeah.
What could happen, or
you still push that aside, even though things are so much more acceptable. But I think once I finally came out to my parents, and was open with them, I felt like, wow, this is so much easier. And I remember one time my mom was with me with, my ex-partner Kyle and we were in San Antonio on the Riverwalk, and Kyle and I were walking in front, and Kyle's mom and my mom were walking behind. And I overheard my mom say, all I've ever wanted for him to be is happy.
Aww.
And I thought, talk about break, just, but, and I thought, well, that is really neat that she was able to say that to somebody else.
Yeah.
All I've ever wanted him to be was happy.
I'm getting all teary-eyed here, Tony.
So, I mean, that it's, when you hear your parents say that, it's very emotional. Another story was, one of my relationships when I was in Texas, we broke up, and I thought, I can't survive. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I went home to Pennsylvania, and I was a wreck. I was a basket case, and I had to take a bus because I couldn't afford to fly, and went from Houston all the way back to Butler, and
Wow.
home for about a week, and I cried and I cried and I cried. And my dad and my mom they'd taken me back to the bus station to go back home. And I'm just like in tears. Anytime I have to say goodbye from my family, it's just like, okay, I'm not gonna cry. Let those emotions out. Well, that day, I go to get on the bus and I'm just boohooing, hugging my mom. And my dad turned to me and he said, "No, you better get a Kleenex." And my dad turned to me and he said, I really wished I knew what to say to you. That was the first time I ever remember my dad telling me that he loved me.
Really?
And, like I said, it was typical. He was the youngest of 3 kids in the family. He raised lived in the house that he was born in. My grandmother lived with us. She was from Italy, didn't speak English.
Wow.
He was, and I think that was just the way that he was raised, that he didn't show emotion. And he never told us that he loved us, even though I know he did.
Mm.
That was the first time that he ever said to me,
Wow. Oh my gosh.
That's powerful.
I think I cried for the first hour and a half on the bus.
I bet.
Like, wow.
That's again,
really does care about me. And I always knew he did, but I just wasn't ever really sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh, Tony.
So,
Oh, I'm really glad you're sharing.
I think that's just some of those things that we go through, being gay and, being the way that we are is, I think sometimes your parents don't know what to say. Nowadays it's totally different. I mean, I think kids can come out and be who they are and, not be afraid.
Yeah,
Some parents still might not know what to say.
Yeah.
And I think hearing your story of saying like, my dad was raised a certain way, he never said, "I love you." There might be a dad that hears this or a mom that hears this that it may reflect and be like, hey, you know what, maybe I don't say that enough, or I think it, but I haven't actually said it, and maybe it could change that and give that moment to somebody else too. So I appreciate sharing that stuff.
I think a lot of that's like, when I meet people, younger people, and that I always tell them, I said, don't take your parents for granted. Don't be afraid to tell your parents that you love them. Don't be afraid to tell, somebody. I think when I talk to Ann a lot, I say, I love you.
Oh, yeah.
Or I'll put a big heart on an email or something and that. And it's like, I think when we were younger, when I was younger, it's just, you didn't hear it enough. And to me nowadays, it's like, you can't say it enough to people. Mm-hmm. Especially now with what we're going through with this coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you guys know how I am. I have to be around people.
Yeah.
And since the end of February. Yeah. And this whole thing is just driving me nuts with not being able to be around the people that I love.
Mm-hmm.
Doing something that I enjoy doing. And, I think that's the thing is if one parent hears this today, and if they get something out of it, don't be afraid to tell your kid you love them, no matter what they are or who they are. You might not understand them, but, they're your flesh and blood.
Yeah.
And that sort of abandon their kids because they come out and say they're gay. I can't comprehend that.
I know being in education for as long as we have, and I'm sure for you too, you've probably had a lot of students who went through that or who like come to you just telling you, I am terrified to tell my parents, like, and then to see the parents that can just like push them away. I could never understand it. I could never understand not loving your child, period.
Absolutely. So, like I said, if anything comes out of this, I hope that somebody that sees this says, I need to tell my kids I love them more.
Yeah.
like 30 some years before I remember my dad saying, I love you. It was a hell of a long time in my life that I just was never really sure that he did.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, and when he did, it's like, wow, now I really know he cares.
Yeah.
I mean, I know my parents were always very proud of me, you know, marching drum corps and that, and, you know, doing what I did. And, you know, a lot of the things that I still do to this day, like, you know, Christmas time, I dress up as Santa Claus. And
Oh, we're coming down as soon as we're allowed to, because we've been talking about it since we met you about bringing the boys to see you.
so, but, you know, it's like I've been doing that for Martina and I've been together 22 years, and it's been at least that long.
Wow.
Christmas, I do it for like the month of December, and just that joy that I can give to, you know, kids that of doing that, you know, and part of that's just me. And, you know, some people say, well, don't you think if somebody knew you were gay that they would be afraid to let your kid come and sit on your lap? No. Why would they think that? I'm dressed up in a Santa Claus outfit. Why would somebody think that, you know, what do you think I'm going to do to the kid? You know,
I've heard that and seen that a lot, unfortunately, that pedophilia is somehow linked to homosexuality, like it's the same thing. Like it's somewhere in the same spectrum. And that blows my mind that people connect those two things, because it's two things they don't understand, apparently, right? And but to morph something like that, it's disturbing to me to hear someone link those things that are totally different, you know, and so I think that's probably where that comes from when you hear that. Like, you think, you know, because people have that misconception, like liking, being in love with a man, you know, a man loving a man has nothing to do with being attracted to children.
Absolutely.
They're very, very, very different. You know what I mean? It's a whole nother a video.
It is. You know? Yeah, so that's a whole nother story.
Down to that one, I don't know. We'll see. But like it's unfortunate. But yeah, you brought that up. We're talking about misconceptions. That might be one of those. That some people have, maybe even a lot of people have. I don't know that. Don't know.
All right. Next question. What do you still see needing to change to further equality and acceptance for the LGBTQ plus community? If you don't know, because it's a big question.
You know, that's a hard one to answer. You know, I think as we become more open-minded, that there's just so much more to, you know, I don't know how to put it into words. People just, you know, you just wish that everybody could accept people for who they are, regardless of who they are. So, you know, that's a hard question to answer. So I wish the government, a lot of the people in government would just say, you know what, this is how life is anymore. With the coronavirus, we're going through something totally different that we never would have thought that we would have gone through. So, you know, it's like the whole thing with acceptance and that. Let people be who they are, and just, you know, it doesn't matter who you're married to, or, you know, like a black guy marrying a white woman, or a white woman marrying a black guy, you know, how that was so, you know, that interracial marriage and that is still such a big thing for some people. Love is love. It doesn't matter who you love. It's love. So I think just the acceptance is the big thing that, you know, you hate to say, I mean, I hate to say this. There are always going to be people that disagree with, you know, of a man loving a man or a woman loving a woman. You know, it's just they're not going to agree with it. But, you know, it's just like, we just hope as you know, your kids get older, that it's just not even something they think about. It's like Logan said to you guys, and I will never forget this when you told me this, when he said it to which one, Mason? Mason, one with Down syndrome?
It's Aiden,
or Aiden. When Logan said to you, Mommy, when you guys are gone, will I have to take care of Aiden? And I thought, oh, my God, he's so young, and to be able to realize that already, that
Yeah.
you probably will. And that's just like the whole thing with us being gay and that. And if and that was the reason Martina and I got married. I said, you know what, I'm not getting any younger, and I don't live by my family.
Yeah.
If something happens to me, you need to be able to make the decisions on what you're going to do, on whether I live or I die.
Mm.
And I don't want somebody to say, well, you're not married, you're not part of, you're not in that that marriage, that you make that decision for me. So like I said, that's the big thing, that I think that one of the big reasons why we got married is
Yeah.
because, one, if something happens to me or something happens to him, we're able to make the decision on what we need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. When I remember that conversation with Logan, and after he ask that, and he said, well, I better marry someone that is going to be okay with that. Like, that was his thought. Like, okay, well, if he's living with us, my spouse has to be okay with it too. Like, and I said, yep, that's true. Like,
that all goes back to you guys as parents, of how you've raised your kids.
oh, thank you.
Your kids have been around a lot of the activity of color guard and marching band, and they've seen it all, and and they probably ask questions. When we moved to Colorado, it was interesting that we had a dog. Her name was Lucy. So we're out in our front yard, and I would say, Lucy, Lucy. Well, our neighbor across the street, her name was Lucy. So we got to meet her really fast. So, and she had 3 boys, and it was interesting, this story that, the youngest one had said, Mom, why do they sleep in the same bed?
Oh.
She had to explain it to them.
Yeah.
And, you know what? Those 3 boys loved us. They would call us, we were their uncle.
Aw, that's awesome.
And I thought, wow, that's interesting that, he was, I think Alfredo was only about maybe 10, if that, and to explain to him what was going on. Yeah. But they loved us like they could care less. It was good that she was accepting of that and was able to explain that whole situation.
That reminds me, when I was little, my dad was a carpenter, and he was doing some project my mom worked in a grocery store, and the baker at the grocery store, my dad was doing a project for him. So we go to their house, and I went with them, and I had to pee really bad. So I went to the bathroom, and I come out, and I was like, Mom, why are there 2 guys' bathrobes in the bathroom? And she goes, because they live together. I'm like, why? And she's like, because they love each other. I was like, okay. And then I went away. Like, that was it. That was the explanation. That's all the explanation I needed. Like, they love each other. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, hopefully in time that, people won't have to ask these questions.
Just be that simple. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They just accept it for who you are.
Yeah.
I think it's coming to that, but will we ever see it in our lifetimes, that there's never a question? You just are who you are. So
I hope we do. I've got one final question for you. And then after we sign off, I want you to stay on, because I have a funny story to tell you, but I don't want to.
Okay.
On the video.
Okay.
All right. So what words of advice would you give the next generation of LGBTQ plus youth that you wish someone would have shared with you?
I think it's the same thing that I've been saying, I think, all night. Just be yourself.
Yeah.
Be afraid to be who you are, because all it's going to do, it's going to hurt you. Be afraid to be the person you want to be, and, you're not able to just open up and, just be who you are. Yeah. It's like I said, go to a contest, and, can I ham it up sometimes when I'm at a show, judging them that? Yeah, I will. But Normally I'm pretty professional about what I do, but when I'm around the other judges and that, I don't think twice to say, what I want to say, oh, wow, look at that. So, you just have to be who you are.
Mm.
Like I said, I think the big thing is just be aware of your surroundings and understand that not everybody understands exactly who we are.
Yeah.
Who you are. And, it's like you just don't know, who's around all the time. So I'm not saying don't be yourself, but sometimes you have to watch who you're around. And, don't get into an argument with somebody about it's not worth it to fight over something that somebody just doesn't understand things.
Mm.
I think that's the big thing is, you just have to be yourself.
Yeah. And you just kind of, in that last comment, encapsulated why we're doing this, because people just don't understand, right?
Yep.
And it's hard for people to understand. It's hard for me to understand certain things. I have said things and done things, like in the 90s, like I used to say all the time, like, oh, that's gay.
Yep.
A lot, and I over time, I'm like, wow, by saying that, I'm saying that gay is a negative connotation, applying it to something. I'm not, and I never ever meant it in a way of saying that being gay is bad, or what I mean. But by saying that, the implicit language I'm saying, it's like a microaggression that I had no idea I was doing. So I think just not understanding things and being able to reflect and listen to people and have these types of conversations is so important. To have people show up late to the party, and then be like, hey, you know what? I'm late, but I'm here now. It's kind of cool to
right.
That's a growth moment, and if we don't keep growing as an individual, as a couple, or whatever that couple looks like, or as an individual, is super important, to thrive and to be happy and successful, whatever you think that means. But I think it's super important to continue to grow and
I think the big thing too is the younger generation is don't be afraid to reach out to somebody.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. I mean, you guys know me, I will talk to anybody. And if somebody has a problem, I'll try to help you through it.
Mm.
I may not totally understand it, but I'll try to lead you in the right direction and, take you down that right path and say, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Or this is let's figure this out and let's help you with this. And I know, and this is probably a whole nother story is, suicide with kids coming out and afraid to deal with it.
Yeah.
Really, is that really the way out?
Yeah. And we talked about that social, emotional effects it can have, and depending on where you're growing up, how, that area is, your family's reaction, the pressure, all those things that are put on you as an individual, can be too much, unfortunately, for some people that don't have someone to reach out to or, ways to cope with it, and I think having these conversations can hopefully, give someone the ability to reach out and to
and this goes back to, my neighbor that I said her name was Lucy and, her son and that. Well, all my years of teaching, I never dealt with suicide with anybody. Or her youngest son that would always take care of our dogs committed suicide at the age of 15. And, and we still to this day have no idea why.
Wow.
What really happened, because he was the type of kid that you just never would have expected something like that. And it's not that the parents, like I said, he was the class clown. He, was always laughing, you could trust him to do anything, but, and I know a lot of kids nowadays are, not just right now, but even years back that you hear so many, things about, so-and-so came out to their parents and then they committed suicide because they didn't know who to go and reach out to whoever you can.
Yeah.
There are many, many people in this world that, will listen and help you through anything. I mean, like I said, I would take anybody into my house and say, sit down and let's talk. And if you've got to stay here for 10 days and we work through this,
Yeah.
let's do it. So, but, so that's the big thing is just don't be afraid to reach out to somebody and
Yeah.
to them. So
Definitely.
Awesome.
Those are great words of advice. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you very much
Sure.
for sharing your story with us.
We appreciate
Thank
it so much. It's been a great conversation. So hopefully, someone can say that they were sorry they're late, but they're here now and they have some more information to understand and walk away with, and make a better place for all of us to live. And
Great.
accept.
I hope so. So
Thank you, Tony.
thank you guys.